Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day today. And this is lesson number 41 in our dive into the wonderful world of music theory. And today we're going to be talking about a very important concept, and that is dynamics. Now, you might remember this from my second lesson where I talked about the elements of music. And let's just try to recall what they were. So the first element of music was pitch. I think we've gone very well into pitch. We learned how to write it down. We've talked about major, minor scales. We talked about key signature. I think we're happy there. The next one was the duration. I think we've also addressed this one pretty well, right? We went into tone, we went into all the different types of notes, we went into how to clap them out, we went to time signature, pretty hard into duration as well. And then there was tone. Tone really has to do with the instrument. So, and also sometimes there's some markings about the staff, but it's not too strongly linked to music theory, especially not at this level. And then there's finally, and there was volume. How loud or soft? How loud or how soft? And that is what dynamics is all about. That's what we're going to be learning today. So with that being said, let's get started. So as I said, dynamics are markings which tell us how loud or soft a place in music. And unlike tempo, which had an exact measure, right, like quarter note is equal to 5 or quarter note is equal to 100 at BPM, and then it had a relative measure where it's like very fast, very slow. Dynamics have no absolute measure. No absolute measure. It means, the scientific unit for measuring loudness or softness is decibels. I'm sure you must have heard it. And no one tells you how many decibels should be an instrument for multiple reasons. Probably because you could never get that precise while as an instrumentalist or a conductor, and because each instrument is different and each instrument has a different range. So in dynamics, we stuck with relative stuff, and let's get into that. And the end, I might address how exactly it's absolute, but let's get into it. So dynamics exist as a form of marking, just like we have tempo markings, we have dynamic markings, and they can be all over the piece. So they come usually right about below the staff, and you would see a dynamic marking right here, just below the staff, usually at the start of a bar. And you can have multiple of these because dynamics can often change throughout a piece. You can have one part of the piece which is soft, and you can have one part that's really loud, or whatever, and it can change. And you can have tempo markings, dynamic markings wherever you want. There's no limit to the number you can have. You can have two right next to each other even if you want to. But great, before we get into exactly where we put them and stuff and the dynamic changes, let's just suggest which dynamic markings we have. And once again, there are other ones, but honestly, they're very little use, aside from the ones that we're talking about today. So these are the main ones. Now we go from softest to loudest. The softest marking is represented by two lowercase p's, one after the other, two lowercase p's, and this is called pianissimo. Pianissimo. Once again, I encourage you to check the spelling on Google because I have no idea how to spell pianissimo. But yes, so pianissimo, right? And this translates to, these are all Italian words, and it translates to very soft. And not in terms, soft in terms of tone quality. It's very quiet, right? The soft is a literal translation. It means very quiet, right? So PP is the quiet, very 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 quiet, like basically means about as quiet as you can get, right? So I'm not sure if you want I can give you an example. I'm not sure if my microphone will even be able to pick this up, but an appropriate would be. I can't even play it properly, but yeah. So something like that. Pianissimo is actually very soft, right? It's bordering how soft you can play. The next one is one lowercase p, a single lowercase p, just one, and that is called piano. Now, try not to confuse this with the instrument. It's called itself piano. There's a funny story why they call it the same thing, and we'll get into that perhaps later. But yeah, piano, great. And this just means soft, or quiet. It's not too quiet, it's not very soft, but it's not moderate soft, it's just soft. Right? I think that's quite apparent. Okay, great. Now, and once again, it's just a small marking P. The next one is a lowercase m followed by a lowercase p, like this. And this is mezzo or mezzo piano. And what this means is moderately soft. This translates to moderately soft. So I'm not I'm not loud, but I'm not soft. I'm not very soft. I'm moderately soft, just a bit soft. Maybe something like this. That's a piano. That's a mezzo piano for me, right? And but as I said, it's up to interpretation. And this mezzo is you'd find it all over. Music just means moderately. So yeah, moderately soft. Great. Then next one we have is mezzo forte. This is where we start getting loud. So this means, as I said, it's in the mezzo forte. It's written with a capital. Sorry, it's lowercase m followed by lowercase f, and it's mezzo forte, spelled like this, and that means moderately loud. So it means moderately loud. So here we're getting into the range of loud. Maybe something like this. Something like that, right? So I'm moderately loud now. Maybe a bit louder than that as well. But once again, it's up to interpretation. Great. So moderately loud. Lovely. Let's move on to the next one. Then we have just a single lowercase f. That means forte. Forte. Just forte. That means loud. Literally, this means loud. Right? And that's like, loud. Not moderately loud, not very loud, just loud. So maybe something like. So that might be forte because I'm playing loudly now. And then there is where I have two capital F's, sorry, no, two small F's, two lowercase F's right together, right beside one another, and this is for fortissimo. Once again, check the spelling for me. I'm not entirely sure. And this means, as you might imagine, very loud, very loud. So that might mean something like. So you can see very loud, bordering to as loud as your instrument can get. And this is the entire spectrum. So we go two P's, which is pianissimo, which means very soft, and one P, which is piano, which means soft. Then we have one M, one P, which means mezzo piano, which means moderately soft, and we have one M and one F, which means mezzo forte, which means moderately loud. This is transition right here. Then we have forte, which means loud, which is one F. We've got two F's, which is fortissimo, which is very loud. Great. The other side, there are some other ones down spectrum. There's a triple P, there's a triple F as well, but you rarely see those anywhere, so you don't have to worry about those. Anywho, this is what exists for dynamics, and as I said, these dynamic markings go below the staff at all times, so you never find it above the staff. So I was below the staff, like here you have mezzo forte, maybe piano right here, and etc, 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 right? And that's how it works. And you can have your dynamic changes happen all over the piece. You have to always pay attention to the dynamic. In one bar it could be mezzo forte, one bar it could be piano, and one bar it could be fortissimo. You never know, right? Now, as for gradual tempo changes, the dynamic changes, as for getting from going from soft to getting louder, 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 I'll cover that in a moment. But before that, I want to cover just a little bit about these markings. Once again, these aren't absolute markings; these are relative. So, some people's piano will be louder than other people's piano, but there's a general consensus over what a piano will be. And a piano for one instrument may be different from another instrument. Think about how loud a timpani can get, right? For context, it can't get very loud. It can't get too loud, right? So maybe its fortissimo would be like a trumpet's mezzo forte. Who knows, right? So it's all about your instrument's capabilities and what you go there. So this is all very relative stuff, though I think people can distinguish what very soft and moderately soft means. So there's no absolute value for what these are in terms of decimals or whatever, but this is the system that we have. Now I think I'll get into gradual tempo dynamic changes. I don't know, I keep on saying tempo, please pardon me, in this video itself. So we talked about this. I encourage you to take a screenshot, maybe look it up on the internet. It's not too hard to remember. You probably get it after two serious sessions. Okay, now let's get into gradual changes. So changes in dynamics. Great, let's try. So as you can see here, you can have an abrupt change where one bar is mezzo forte, one bar is piano. Great. So you're playing moderately loud here, you're playing soft here. Great. You can do that. It's actually not that uncommon in music. Okay. Now changes can also be gradual. That happens in the form of crescendo, and diminuendo, also known as decrescendo. Two words for the same marking, right? So as you might imagine, crescendo means to gradually get louder. So once again, there are multiple different ways to write crescendo, but often the way crescendo is written is, let's say you have a mezzo four, let's say you have a mezzo, let's say you have a piano marking here, right? You've got a staff, five, you have the staff, the music being written lovely, you have piano marking here, you have a C R E S C marking like this, and you have a dotted line going off. Often this is how you will see crescendo written. And at the end of the dotted line, you will have maybe a forte. And what that means is you're starting on piano, then for this entire period, this while the crescendo is active, when the dotted line goes, you're getting louder, and by the end you're at forte. So going from soft to loud, I'm getting louder throughout this period in time, right? So, and you'll often see it written like this, crescendo. This is how crescendo is usually written. Another way to write crescendo, and you usually see this written for smaller distances where you can't fit the entire thing, is you draw a line instead. So let me write a 5, right? Let's say you've got some music here, lovely, everyone's happy. You want to go from piano to forte. You can sometimes have a line like this. It says go to, and this line means crescendo. That means get louder. And I think it makes sense. You're going from soft to loud. It seems to get bigger. It's like a kind of like a mathematical inequality. If you're studying that in math class right now, it looks something like this. And this can theoretically be as long as you want, but if you're trying to make one that's this big in music, you might as well just write crescendo and do the dotted line. Point being, yeah, it just means crescendo, and it means going to piano to forte. And right now I'm using piano forte, but you could go to pianissimo to mezzo piano, or forte to forte, mezzo forte to forte, or pianissimo to fortissimo. Anything works, right? And once again, this lines means to get louder across that period in time, right? Go from piano to pianissimo. Then for diminuendo or decrescendo, you will see a similar thing. Let me draw a staff here. And music's written here, everyone's happy, great. So on forte, for a decrescendo, you will either see a dim for diminuendo, or sometimes you see a decrescendo. They mean the same thing, keep that in mind. And once again, dotted line, and then you come to piano. But once again, it means the same thing as crescendo. You're starting on forte, and then you're gradually getting softer and softer until you reach piano. So going from loud to soft over this period, right? And saying exactly what the starting and end points are. Similar to crescendo, you also, in smaller spaces, you also have another alternative to represent this. That is, if you got forte. Once again, just like that was a bad drawing of it, but yeah, you get the point, right? It's just like the opposite of that. It's like a mathematical inequality once again. So you got fortissimo, and then you're getting softer, this sort of alligator mouth type thing, and you go to pianissimo. Once again, this is meant for shorter dynamic changes. So if you want to suddenly go from forte to pianissimo, but still have some gradual change, you can do it like that. And this is how it works, and everyone's happy once again. That's I can try to demonstrate crescendo decrescendo for you. I'll do my best, but keep in mind I am not that great at piano, so we'll have to see. So maybe crescendo would be, maybe crescendo would be, and maybe decrescendo or diminuendo would be. So I have to be careful not to affect the speed or anything. It's just loudness or softness. So once again, maybe decrescendo would be. That's the digital piano, so like it's keyboard, not even a digital piano, so it doesn't have that much dynamic range. But like it won't change, my playing won't change the volume all that much. But yeah, it's, you can find out 1,000 different examples of diminuendo and crescendo on YouTube if you're confused for what it would sound like. Regardless, that's all that there really was to cover dynamics for me today. This is number 41, and that's all there is. They're very important. Most people ignore dynamics, but they're incredibly important because they're the only thing that's defining volume, which is one of the key elements of music. That being said, hopefully you found this lesson informative. Hopefully you took something valuable away from it. Hopefully you enjoyed it to some extent, and I'm wishing you a wonderful rest of the day. I will see you next class. Bye.